I'm back, and is everybody there and back?
So it'll be Audrey, Sheila, Cynthia, Jamie. Was Cynthia last one to talk, or Jamie?
Okay, that was Lacey. Sheila, are you there? I can't see you guys on my screen, so.
Yeah, I'm here.
And Lacey, and then Audrey, are you there?
They're all here.
Sorry, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. And Cynthia, Sammy said Cynthia's there too as well.
Yep.
Okay, so I believe that Lacey talked last, so Audrey, if you want to go ahead and let's talk about the theory hours.
Awesome. So I definitely agree with Cynthia that career development needs to be 60 hours. I think there's a lot of things, especially in this day and age, that, talking about developing your career, but also social media and scheduling and how to deal with clients is really important. And I don't think you can encompass it in 20 hours. Let's see here. I think that a lot of things that people talk about as far as raising the other theory hours to meet that those hour requirements is great. I definitely think certain areas need to have more. I can't remember what the original numbers are now that all the other numbers are up on the screen, but I think microbiology definitely at least 10 to 20 hours, not 5. Product knowledge and chemistry, I think more than 5, so 10 to 20, or implements, tools, and equipment. If it's just those items and draping, 20 hours is great. Machines, 50, awesome. Anatomy and physiology, I think the higher end is going to be ideal. Oregon laws and rules, I don't think we necessarily need 60. I can't remember what I had written down, but 20, 25, 30, somewhere in that middle range, so that people get enough access to the information to test on it and learn it would be great. But I definitely agree that the hours need to change a little bit. I want to say, though, I don't think that we should be bringing the practicum hours back up to like 360. I think where we had it at the 280 is great, and it's going to allow for people to get through school and become competent. We're not going to be winning electrolysis awards. That's not the purpose of school. The purpose of school is to be able to learn how to do procedures safely and do electrolysis. You have to continue your education after you leave school. So I think that is ideal for becoming competent in electrolysis.
Okay, so you had for Oregon laws and rules 40. So you're in agreement, just so career development is okay with 60. Oregon laws and rules, you had 40 on your document, Audrey. Anatomy and physiology, you're in agreement with the 60. Microbiology, you said 10?
10 to 20, yeah.
10 to 20, okay. And then implements, tools, and equipment, you're okay if we're separating it out like we are with the 20? And then machines you were fine with at the 50, and then the product knowledge and chemistry you had 20, and you were
10 to 20 would be ideal, I think.
Okay. 10 to 20. Okay, and then safe usage, safety devices, and federal guidelines.
Yeah, I guess that would depend on. Because if we're talking about those machines and modalities, I can't remember if I put that in there on my document or not. I made that last night super quickly, so I can't remember exactly what I was thinking.
You had 100, Audrey.
Okay, yeah, so I can't remember, though, how the other areas were broken up. So now that they've been changed, those numbers might change, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But basically, that area encompasses so many different things. If we're including like CPR and first aid and bloodborne pathogens, which I think it should, then it should have definitely more hours. So I would say wherever our excessive hours are that we need to fulfill, I would say let's stick it there, depending on how much our total is right now.
Okay, so just so this section, we didn't modify this section, the safe usage and safety devices. We did the machines, the implements, and then we did the actual modalities themselves. So
Yeah,
on the
just to see what our total is on that, in that right column without the safe usage and safety devices, like what is our total of all those hours?
okay, so your recommendation was 100. So,
Yeah.
and then I want to ask your opinion on the safety and sanitation in regards to encompassing it in the hour procedure from start to finish. What was your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's obviously going to be a part of the procedure, so, cleaning up counts as part of that procedure, but like Cynthia said, students still have to do laundry, they still have to sterilize tweezers, and those are not part of your procedure working on a client. So I can't remember in my draft that I sent you, I think I had separated it out that students do earn theory or practical hours. I can't remember what it was. I think it was practical hours and then like a minimum amount of safety and sanitation procedures. So things like, cleaning the floors and laundry and like things that are extra that aren't a part of just working on one client.
Okay, in your document, you had 40 operations for safety, sanitation, and 20 actual practical hours.
Yeah, I just guesstimated that. I think, that can change, but the biggest point I wanted to make was that, it should be separate. It shouldn't just be like 10, ideally 10% of your time there is working on safety and sanitation. I think it should be you complete a certain amount of sanitations and check off to make sure that you're doing additional sanitation work.
Okay, and then on the theory for the modalities, the understanding the actual service itself and the theory aspect of it, the 50 hours you were fine with as well?
I think I had moved it somewhere else because like Cynthia was saying, it was a little confusing as far as where do you learn theory on the modalities, like at what point, but I think that that's flexible as far as where to move it or to keep it there. But I think, 50 to 60, learning about them, each modality is sufficient.
Okay. Perfect. And then just so I'm clear, you are in recommendation of the lower hour, or operations, not the 360. You are, yours, I believe on your document was the
Agreed, yeah.
280
is what I ideally would think would work best. And then over on that right-hand column, whatever kind of finessing we need to do to get it to be the 320 to maintain a 600-hour program would be great.
Okay, and then what was your thoughts on adding these specific areas, identifying these areas under each of these procedures?
I don't personally think it's necessary to define it under there. I think that, people that are teaching electrolysis understand the need to do those areas, but I also think if you were to define it, it would create an unnecessary burden upon the school to, try to find somebody who wants bikini work done. That might be very hard for somebody to come into a school and get that done. I think just leaving it how it is without defining those areas is okay.
Okay, I'm going to bring up, hang on just a second. Hang on, bear with me, guys. I'm going to bring up so when we are talking about the services themselves, we talk about the application and treatments, and if we were going to specify certain areas, then we would do it under section 9. We could include all of the areas, however, not make limitations on certain ones. Do you feel that individuals would need to at least have experience under each of these areas, even if it's not a minimum specific?
That's hard to say. I mean, obviously, ideally, yes, but I don't think adding it as a requirement to the curriculum is necessary. I think that should be left up to the school and the models. And if somebody graduates school and they haven't worked on eyebrows, I think it's, should be who to them to reach out to a colleague or ask for additional continuing education. Just like aesthetic school, you don't graduate necessarily having done all different types of things. You learn the basics and then continue your education.
Okay, so I know that Sammy had just talked about, I think it was in cosmetology, if you do not have training in one of those specific areas, that you actually have to be able to verify that you have had training in that area via certificate or documentation or some proof. I think that I can work with Sammy on maybe looking at some rule language there for ensuring that whatever procedure you're performing, if we're not going to identify them out specifically and require each individual have training in each of these areas, that if you are going to have that training, that you need to be able to verify some education for that.
I don't think it's necessary. I think it's with different areas of the body. Yeah, there's going to be different angles and things and different things you should watch out for, but I don't think it's as intense as like you need a microneedling certificate or you need a certificate saying that you understand how to use sugar for sugaring. It's still hair and skin, and if you learn the basics, you can troubleshoot your way through different areas of the body and obviously reach out for help if you need it. I don't think you need a separate certificate saying that you've been trained on how to treat the abdomen. Just my personal opinion.
Okay, did you have any other comments that you want to make in general in regards to all of the other comments that had been made?
I don't think so, but my short-term memory is not super great, so maybe I don't think so at this point.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to move on to Lacey now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'm really kind of with Audrey on a lot of this, except a couple things. I like the pre-development with that, but I think that with the way the world of electrology is changing, I'd like to see some things added into the career development, such as on the medical end of things. The medical side of electrolysis is becoming very, very big. It doesn't have to be covered in great detail because, like Audrey, you guys were saying, I think that needs to be separate training, but I also think that students need to understand there's a basics to that, such as pre-authorization and like a CBS 1500 acre forms, different various things like that, just so that they know. They just, when you want to go and start doing insurance billing and stuff like that, there are things that need to be done to be able to do that kind of work, such as your MPI number, your DMAP, Medicaid, Medicare numbers, stuff like that, that should be into that curriculum as far as business end of things. Because the world of electrology is kind of shifting a little bit more to the medical end of things along with a lot of the cosmetic things. But I do agree with Audrey on a lot of what she just said. I also think with the change in the hours, I like also what Jamie Bloom was saying about the split in the hour allocation. I don't think I think there should be a happy compromise between Audrey and Jamie on that, because Jamie, I think, was asking for quite a bit more. But I do like the idea that, the hours, there's more being spent, a little bit less being spent on galvanic, but more being spent on thermolysis and blend. Those are pretty much the primary go-tos anymore these days. But I also think, too, that thermolysis should be basically just, given out as far as what that particular instructor is teaching. I don't think that needs to be split into different, between flash, manual, and so on, because like Jamie was mentioning, there are a lot of different machines do different things. Like I said, there's a lot of machines out there today that will do it on its own and switch between the different styles of thermolysis and stuff also. Silhouette tones, one of the big ones, does that kind of stuff. But also, I had some notes here as we were talking, I'm sorry. But I think, what was that? I'm sorry.
No, I said that's fine.
Okay. So, but I do like the way that Jamie split out the hours. I do believe there can be like a happy compromise between what Audrey was saying and what she's saying. I also believe, though, that Cynthia, when she was talking about, there are things that are not covered in procedure routines as far as like safety and procedures and stuff like that in that section. because there are autoclaves, there are other things that happens within inside of the facility that doesn't cover what is, done as far as that goes. I do think there needs to be more added to the Oregon law, because one thing that I'm finding out, especially now that I'm working with the Oregon Association of Licensed Electrologists, the AEA, and talking to a lot of electrologists around, is a lot of people don't understand the difference between cosmetology rules and regulations and body arts rules and regulations, and the difference between the two, and facility licensing between the two. A lot of hair salons are like, oh yeah, I'll take on an electrologist, but really in theory they can't, because they can't meet the specific needs for the BAF facility. So I think some of that really isn't covered in a lot of the Oregon. So I do think that there needs to be more time with that, like Jamie was saying. We run into lots of them, the industry, but the people asking questions because they don't understand a lot of the Oregon laws. So I would personally like to see a little more. I know as a personal note for me, I get asked a lot of questions. And sometimes they're really basic questions like, can I have carpet in my treatment room? Does it need to be a non-permeable floor? So there are things that, that's like people don't seem to understand on some of that. I do think, though, that microbiology needs to become up quite a bit more, especially with today's environment, with like the pandemic and everything else like that. I really do believe that has to be more of a focus, especially with bloodborne pathogens and how we sanitize and how we clean as far as the microbiology aspect goes of it. And also anatomy and physiology, that's something that's really important. And that's why I like what Audrey's got for hours down, is because I think anatomy and physiology really encompasses a lot of what we do. I mean, if you look at the aesthetics program, the cosmetology side, because I'm also licensed in cosmetology, the aesthetics programs like that, and barbering alone, I mean, you guys know OHL, that covers a lot of, anatomy and physiology, and I really think that it really helps that it's in there. I really think that that's something that's important to be taught also, is covering the ends of the, anatomy and physiology portions of a lot of that stuff, and more than just some of the basics. I do like to add additional hours to those areas, because I think that's something that, and again, as we start moving into a different era of electrology, where it's not so much cosmetic, where there's more medical end of things that we're doing, that's an important part of what we're doing. And, and I kind of go with what Jamie said on that, her points that she made about it were really important, I think, to add to that. And, with, no, we're not dermatologists, but, we are a frontline approach, though, because if we see moles on somebody's body or something like that, we need to understand what those are. So, because I know as a former barber, I saved the guy's life, because I kept saying, you have a mole on the back of your head, you need to check. No. And I'm like, so I started taking pictures of it with these phones and sending to the doctor. We're LDs, we're not MDs. We don't diagnose or, prescribe. But by golly, we can sure send someone to the doctor if we see something and say, hey, you might want to get this checked out. I think it might be something that you should at least get looked at. So, these are important aspects. I think that really the time we spend in those areas, it's really important to help and to get us better at what we're doing. I do want to say that I really do agree with what you guys are saying about adding on, there should be some advanced training for some of the stuff that we do out here in the world of electrology, but I think that's for another day or another segment, not so much into this curriculum. But I do believe that's something with the way things are going, the way things are changing within the world of electrology, that's something that's very, very important, is that there are advanced training. That's one of the reasons I would say that body parts, it should not be that much of a specific area, because, and there are body parts, there are certain procedures that I think, coming soon should be very much a specialized certification that falls under its own training curriculum, such as, like I said, doing, medical procedures where we are billing medical insurances, we are doing anesthetizations, we are doing different things like working with doctors to perform anesthetizations and doing stuff like that. So I think that's really, really important that we start looking at some of the medical ends of electrology being separate. The curriculum should touch on it, so students know, hey, this is an area that we can get into, and this is something we should go into. But to have someone walk right out of electrology school with a very basic knowledge, that's a hard world. I spent a lot of time working within, the insurance world and medical world to be able to get where I am with my practice. And I get asked a lot of questions by a lot of other electrologists about, how do I get pre-authorizations? How do I get, information? What is an ROI? What is a single case agreement or letter of authorization? How do I go about doing it? Have the HIPAA rules. There's a big one for your career development right there that we don't cover as electrologists. HIPAA. People don't think so. By golly, you start taking insurance, it covers HIPAA. And we're covered by HIPAA more ways than you think we're covered by HIPAA, but I didn't see that anywhere in here. But I tell you what, we break a HIPAA rule, and, the world can come down on us pretty darn quickly whenever we're starting dealing with HIPAA, with medical insurance, and doing also the work with people's personal medical information. I mean, as an electrologist, we receive people's personal medical information all the time, especially when it comes in from a doctor's office and we're trying to get a pre-authorization to be able to get work done for gender reassignment surgery or polycystic ovarian syndrome, or an older woman who's got hormonal needs and stuff like that. I mean, I literally get people's chart notes for their entire lives dealing with their doctor from all of their procedures, all the things they had for gender reassignment, or their workup, their psych letters from their psychiatrists and stuff. This is all personal information that comes into my office that therefore I have to keep and abide by HIPAA rules because I have my NCI number and all that, so I can be able to do the procedures I do, and that's really not covered in this. But even when it comes down to just doing cosmetic things, we carry a lot of people's personal health information when it's covered on our health history forms that we have them fill out, that we're required to have them filled out, just even doing cosmetic work that covers a lot of their health history. So I think that needs to be the biggest reason right there for career development. A lot of that stuff can be covered in career development for those areas, because those are areas that can get us in a lot of trouble. And if you have someone going out, kind of half-talk, doesn't know that, and, they're talking about somebody's personal information outside of work or whatever, I mean, and it gets overheard. HIPAA, when you look into the medical industry right now, HIPAA is such a big thing that everybody, that's why you have to sign a paperwork every time you go see your doctor that you get the HIPAA rules apply. So, when you talk about career development, these are areas that really, really need to get covered good. Even they not to the extent that if someone's going to be doing a lot of medical work, but it needs to be mentioned and talked about and maybe gone over a little bit, in my opinion. But it's something that we don't really look at. So, other than that, I do like the hours where they're at. Like I said, with the compromise, between Audrey and Jamie, I can see both ends of both of them. So it's kind of hard for me to which way do I want to jump on that? I am all for each procedure, a procedure being an hour, no less, because I also see what Cynthia Mendoza is saying, but I also think that if someone does, let's say, a marathon session, does 3 hours on someone's leg, I think that should be counted as more procedures because that is more time being spent, but you're only going to set up sanitizing and draping once for that person. So, but I do like to see procedures at a time and set for a time. I know I'm covering a lot of stuff we just kind of covered, but I'm just kind of summing everything up that was in my thoughts as we get to this point, and for the proposal. But so, and again, that puts the more time or the emphasis back on the part that we were just talking about with the safety and part, the implements, tools, and equipment. I do agree though with Cynthia in some parts and Jamie, other parts, the galvanic thermolysis is covered when we go over the hours with each one of those particular instruments, or machines. You cover those processes and modalities, but you cover those separately within your hours, your procedure hours down below. But I also think, though, that we need to talk about the different machines, different styles of machines, how each machine works, the difference between high frequency, the difference between using galvanic and electricity to create sodium hydroxide. There are some things that people need to understand. Why does my machine work the way it does? I'm sure if you get somebody interested enough, we'll find another Arthur Hinkle out there somewhere. If I have inside joke. So I do really think, though, that going over tools, that's another thing. Tweezers. It sounds really simple, tweezers, but there's a lot of different styles of tweezers, variations of styles of tweezers. I know that I currently keep about 8 different styles. And I use all 8 of them for very different reasons in different spots of the body. I'd like to, you need to go over tools. What are the tools of my trade? That's something really important. Even if the school doesn't use those. It still should be mentioned or talked about. The student needs to have every chance he has to have every tool at his they, I'll just try to go to a non-gender, they need in their toolbox to perform the job that they're going to be doing. And I really feel like the most important thing that we really need is we need to send the student out with the most valid knowledge they have, the best knowledge they have. I understand that part of what we're talking about is minimum curriculum to get them through school and get their license. But we also have to realize that they're going to be out here in our field, working in our field, and we want them to be able to maintain a certain standard of work once they leave school. And I think that's important that when we focus on this, it's focused on that basis that we're actually creating someone who's going to be working as a colleague in this, in this industry with us. So, there's a lot of things, and that's why training is so important. Sometimes when you go and you start creating or going back through a lot of this stuff, a lot of it's lost because some of us have agendas, like, I teach school, I don't teach school. I myself do this kind of work, so I want to see people go more into the medical industry portion of it. But what we really need to do is find that well-rounded area that really suits our field and industry best, where we encompass everything and we set up the very best trained student as possible. And to me, that's what's important. And I really see adding in some of the stuff to the hours that we're at right now, taking a little bit from everybody as being kind of the best approach, in my opinion. I'll shut it from there.
No, that's great. I really appreciate your input, and again, in putting this information together, all of your input is very important. Now, so here's what I am going to do. I'm going to eventually get to Cynthia, Sheila, and Jamie. I know, Audrey, you just spoke, but you are going to be leaving here in 5 minutes. Is there any final words you wanted to say before you left, Audrey?
I have no final words, but I appreciate everyone, and I look forward to the next meeting.
Perfect. And then, so just so you know, Audrey, we'll be in touch in the future with additional meetings, because obviously this one isn't going to finalize this up, and so I will be in contact with you, okay, in addition to everyone else.
Thank you. Sounds great. Have a good day, y'all.
You too, Audrey. Thank you. So, Cynthia, any final comments in regards to what we've already talked about, what anybody else has said?
Which was a little misunderstanding. I didn't think that we needed 50 hours on just looking at machines. Or did you move that again?
No, I left machines. Go ahead.
So you have machines and 50, but down farther, don't you have the 50 hours in theory underneath of, yes, there as well. So the 50 hours of theory is already accounted for right there at the very bottom.
Yeah, okay.
And so the upper one needs to go away.
So my understanding when you first talked about is this section is in regards to just learning the machines themselves and the different types of machines, and this one was learning about the different types of procedures.
Yeah, so this one's about the procedures. If we're going to do the other one, looking at different companies, then that can go down to about 10 hours.
This one here?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Because I already have a program that I teach on the different machines, and it goes over it, and it doesn't even take 10 hours.
Okay. So,
but I do that after they have learned the modalities.
Yes, down here, the actual service itself.
Yeah, once they learn the modalities, then I go over the machines because it makes sense.
Okay, I'll as I'm putting this together, I'll make sure the modalities come before the machines, okay?
Yeah, well, yeah. And then I was re-looking over the anatomy physiology, and endocrinology isn't in the breakdown of it, but it is on the summary page that you're on right now. And so when I look at it, the anatomy and physiology really needs to go up to, let's see, 15, 25, that's 50. Needs to go up to about 60 hours.
Okay, let me get back there. Hang on just a second.
It's just, so many things are hidden within something.
Yes, and that was one of the recommendations as well, the 60 hours. Okay, anything else you wanted to comment on?
And then as far as rules and regs, I still stick with the 10, simply because I go over rules and regs. The state needs to give a rules and regs test, and maybe everybody needs to take it. But I give it in the school, even though it's not a requirement. So
Okay.
10 hours justifies going over rules and regs. I'm gonna break this out in an outline for you,
Okay.
so that my recommendation is just presented to you.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. Thank you, because I will be calling each and every one of you and working with you independently, in addition to putting the documentation back together so we can come back as a group and look at the different options. So thank you for doing that, Cynthia, and we'll work together on that as well as, again, as everybody else. Okay, anything
I know
else?
this is hard.
Anything else, Cynthia?
No, right at this moment, I think we're good.
Okay. Sheila, did you want to comment on anything that anybody else has discussed about, or if you have any additional thoughts?
Yes, I want to say that I lean toward Cynthia and Audrey and Lacey's comments on the career section of the theory. There are so many different subheadings of things that are listed already that they just 20 hours a day just wouldn't cover everything. Just the whole item of insurance that is new to everybody since they're getting Oregon Health Plan, transgender coverage, and I think it was Lacey who mentioned something about PCOS, which I haven't heard that we have any coverage for, so I'd like to know more about that. So I really don't think we should skip on that. And the state rules, you do your best you can. People don't always get their emails, and there is an independent streak among some people who I think they just don't want to follow the rules, or they just it's one of the things they unless if they know they're going to have an inspection or something, they just don't know what applies to them. There's a certain mindset that has something to do with state regulations that, I think you go over it as much as you can, but they come back to people with questions about them because maybe they just didn't get the memo from the state, or they didn't sign up for your email, those kinds of things. So they sound like they just never heard it, but they have, but they don't remember. There's so many things that slip off the page. But aside from that, the hours, I'd like to see them stay more toward the 300 hours, so something that's been compromised there. But to do that, and then we'd have some hours left over maybe to expand some of the things on the theory. But I would hate to skimp on the practical too much. I think that lower number is way too low. That's all.
Okay, and then did Jamie leave? Jamie, are you still there, or did you leave?
I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Jamie, did you want to comment on anything, any of the other members, or final comments?
No, I just, I wanted to say I have a master's degree in education. I do understand how to teach theory and not just practical, but theory. And, I don't think we should skimp on theory, but I also think for our profession, I've seen a lot of people come where they pass the test, a practical test, but the way the test is given, they pass the test, but I wouldn't consider them really good electrologists yet. Just like driving a car, you get your license and then you learn how to drive way after you have your license. I would like to see, and I don't know how the schools could do this, but to give, after you have your license, to go back to school and learn different techniques, different modalities, different areas, medical work, and I find from people that come to me from other electrologists where they've gone and they've been going for over a year and they haven't gotten any results, it makes it terrible for the profession because that person really wasn't good and wasn't doing their job. I really think we need to raise the standards of our profession, and I think that's why I'm against lowering the practical side. I really think 360 hours is a good milestone because the more you work, the better you become. I myself went to a school in New York for 120 hours, and for the first 6 months I was practicing. So having 300 hours of practical work, you're practicing while you're in school where people can help you, whereas you're not practicing on your own. That's all I have to say. And Cynthia, thank you so much for all your help.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you very much. And so again, like I had stated before, I'm going to take all of your input and put together some recommendations. I'll be reaching out to you individually, and then we'll be scheduling another meeting. Is there anyone else that needed to say anything before I move it over to Sammy? No? Okay, well, thank you very much for all of your input and expertise. I really appreciate it. This has been a little bit of a difficult process because of where we're at across the board, but we will come together and we will work through this. And then, so it may take another meeting, it may take a couple meetings, but we will ensure at the end of this process that we come up with a comprehensive curriculum or comprehensive curriculums recommendations to move forward to the board. And again, thank you, and I'm going to pass it off to Sammy. Oh, hang on.
Pieces,
Oh, I guess I have another piece.
alternative pathways to licensure.
Oh,
The training program.
okay, so I guess I have another piece
I
here.
can talk about it, but you don't have a curriculum, so you can't match up the training program.
Yeah.
I'm not going to explain to them about it. School board when they're going to go.
Okay, so one of the options on the agenda, the next item is the alternative pathways for licensure. Currently, there is only one school in Oregon, and currently that school isn't even taking on new students. I have been working with the school and the Higher Education Coordinating Commission to try to get some waivers for square footage. One of the things that we can do via rule, which we have statutory authority for, because there are no schools taking on new students, and we need to open this up for individuals who want to become electrologists. We have the option to have a trainee program which allows for, which would be consistent with the curriculum once we can get that curriculum in place. And what would happen is you would have approved supervisors that would meets certain criteria, and that they would have to follow a training program that a RAC comes to agreeance on and the board approves, which again would be consistent with the curriculum once we finalize that. And so if I could get your comments on your thoughts on that and your thoughts on that, and we will take whoever's hand is up first. Hang on just a moment.
Cynthia.
Cynthia?
We are going to move forward with rules on that. Once you
Oh.
get the curriculum.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Then let's see.
Okay, as far as coming up with some other type of way of doing this, because I know in our school we're limited right now, I would say that would be fine. I've trained a lot of people that are, I call it chair side, but they call it, I'm at a loss for words. Anyways, the problem is they don't really get very good education on the theory. So I would be in favor of anything like that happening as long as they completed a course. And like our school has the online course, I know there's another school that has an online course that you could do that portion of it, as long as you made them have to do that online portion before they went into this other type of training.
Okay. And then, thank you for your comments on that. And then Lacey?
I personally am all for it. I currently have somebody who's shadowed me for about 4 months, and she's down in California at AIA going to school. It's really, really helped a lot that way. But I think, because I have my facility is body arts and cosmetology, I do have a piercer and a tattoo person in my facility too, and they are both supervisors. So I do see and like that idea. I think that as long as the supervisor understands and knows the course curriculum and is held to the standard, but a lot of that's going to prove in the pudding when the student goes and takes their tests and their practical tests and their written examination. So there's a lot of that needs, but if there's a curriculum to follow, there's ways to go through that and make sure that there's portions. Apprenticeships work really, really good. And I think it matters as long as the curriculum is there and there's a syllabus there to be able to be followed, and it's followed, and there's ways, testing-wise, to make sure that those curriculums are followed. You would have to, supervisors held accountable. But yeah, I 100% agree with it, and I think it's probably one of the very best ways to go, especially now with not a school here in Oregon, because right now we are hurting for electrologists in the state, and we really are. And there's no ifs, ands, about it. Jamie, I'm sure, would back me up on that. But I think that that's an important route to take. I think there needs to be alternatives. Some people learn a little different than other people, more hands-on versus kind of a school setting. But we're currently doing it in the tattoo and piercing portion for Oregon, and we turn out some really good tattoo and piercers. And I think as long as it's managed well and done well, I think it's a really, really good option, and it might be one of the best ways to go to be able to do that.
Thank you, Lacey. Jamie, you are next.
Okay, I think daggers are going to fly right now. I am absolutely opposed to it. I know the AEA has their guidelines for doing chairside training. I also know in Oregon we don't have enough electrologists. So if an electrologist is going to give up her time to train somebody, I believe that the person training and the electrologist herself is going to lose money. Also, not every electrologist knows how to teach somebody. And how do we know that electrologist is a good electrologist? I'm really all for, like, I know the schools in California do let you take your written work online, which I think is fabulous. And then you go down to California for like 2 to 2.5 months, and they have facilities there for staying over that are pretty cheap. You get your California license, and Cerinthia just said if you get your California license, Oregon accepts it. I would love to see a school open up in Oregon, but I am not for chairside instruction. I think the person is only learning from one person, and when you go to a school, there's more than one teacher there. Each person has their own style and can help that person develop their own style. So, yeah, I'm against it.
Thank you for your input, Jamie. Sheila, did you have anything to add?
Well, my first thought when I read this was, who's got time to do this? I'm busier than I've ever been. And I know other electrologists like this in the Portland area, and even that started taking insurance, it's just really jammed up. And I don't know who we're going to find to do this. Maybe there's somebody who's wanted to do this, and this would be great for them to have a way to do chairside. Some people might have retired. It doesn't mean that they have any training in the curriculum, though. But know what all needs to be done. Do the hands-on, but not the theory especially in the style you would get in a regular classroom. And I would hate to think that we'd have a lot of this happen that would hurt the opening of the school again. It's hard enough to get enough people interested in taking the class, and they've only had sometimes one person a year take the test. So I don't know how many people would be interested in doing chairside as opposed to going to the school if it were open. I'm kind of torn between this. I think it could be valuable, and yet I think it could be just a can of worms. I don't know.
You want to look at it?
Thank you, Jamie, or Sheila, excuse
That's all I
me.
had.
Yeah, thank you for your input. I appreciate that. Does anybody else want to make a comment, again, in regards to this topic?
I would. Like I said, I think it's working really good in the tap to in-person industry, and that would be what my take on it is that we're currently doing it in those other two industries. So, but I can also see what Jamie and Sheila were saying. So, but you got to find a happy medium. So.
Cynthia,
moving forward with this due to the fact that we have more schools taking on students.
Yes, Sheila. Yes,
I
Sheila.
have one question. You mentioned that working out those two programs, that it seemed like it took a long time before you got supervisors. In one of the programs or the other, that didn't just take off really fast. I think I'm wrong in that recollection. That from the board meetings, it seemed like that didn't happen just all of a sudden.
That we didn't have supervisors?
Yeah, for the tattooing and piercer supervisors
For tattooing, they're licensed career schools. For tattooing, they're licensed career schools like Electrology is currently. When we did body piercing in 2012, we had supervisors ready to supervise on January 1st of 2012. So January 2011 legislation, January 1 of 2012, we had supervisors. And I mean, basically, you would use the same premise that HEC uses to register a teacher. They have this much experience in the profession. I mean, there isn't like some instructor test that you get to become an instructor in cosmetology or electrology. You basically have a license for a certain amount of time. You have a disciplinary action. You can teach it, and then you have to get continuing education. We would
We
use
used to
that,
have an instructor exam,
but we don't anymore.
yeah.
So that would be the basic premise. And like Lacey said, the proof's in the pudding. Once you teach somebody, then they sit for a written or practical exam. If they don't pass, then they probably didn't have great instruction. They need to relook at that. And we have ways to do that when we're looking at exams and what areas people fail in and how to teach the teacher to retrain them in those specific areas. So, and especially for a small profession, it's definitely more, and of course it's an option, right? Sheila, you wouldn't have to teach it. Jamie, you don't have to teach it, but certainly maybe Audrey would, maybe Lacey would, and it would be in could be in their facility where they do electrology, they have a second chair. I mean, it can be very simplistic, and it's apprenticeship style, so you're basically chairside on the job training, and you still have theory hours just like you do in the school. It'd be exactly the same. I'm not sure what you mean by online. Would that be different than reading a book? Would you be having an online training with a trainer on one end of the computer and a person on another end? Are you just watching a video? So I have questions about that kind of a requirement. But it's definitely doable, especially with a smaller profession, than having to do all this astronomical stuff that you do to have a school. That's why it's worked well for piercing, because they're a smaller profession. Tattooing's got 7,000 licensees, so it wouldn't be as tangible for them to have a training program.
Does the state provide any sort of teaching to teachers or any review of anything to make sure that person knows the material they're going to be covering with their chairside person?
Well, I mean, it would be the same. It would be the same as what if a if a registered teacher from HEC, they know the profession and they know the rules, they're going to teach it. I mean, there's no special training they get from HEC to be a teacher.
But so does HEC, how does HEC know that these people, what they're going to know enough to do this?
They hold a license.
They verify that the individual that wants to become a teacher has minimum experience and licensure requirements. And like Sammy said, they don't make them take a test.
Nope.
It's based on experience and time.
Yep.
And then to answer your question, another question, Jamie, in regards to consistency throughout the supervisors, the training program is laid out in regards to what is the responsibility of the trainer, what is responsibility of the supervisor. There are forms that need to be signed, and it lays it out in regards to completion of theory prior to moving into your practical, and then again, it is consistent with the curriculum and times and supervision ratios, direct versus indirect. So there's a lot of information and parameters set in a training program that we will go over and as a RAC put together, recommend to the board. And so one of the things I did want to point out is due to the fact that we have no school at this point, we will be moving forward with rules for this alternative pathway for training, because the state of Oregon has to make a pathway for individuals to gain licensure. And so we will be moving forward with this rule language, and I will be working with this committee to put a training program together once we finalize a curriculum.
One thing I'd like to say,
They all have their hand up.
Sheila's concerns and everybody else's concerns about this, why is it doing that? Is that I have trained people that were taught in apprenticeship programs, and their lack of knowledge was extreme. And I gave them kudos for coming because they realized they didn't know. And that's why I say I could be okay, I guess, with apprenticeship program as long as the theory. And I even thought, it's theory, do the theory online through one of the licensed schools, so we know what kind of stuff is put into it. They have to pass that written exam prior to beginning any practical.
Well, at this point, Cynthia, there are no licensed schools taking on new students, so we,
You know, you keep saying I'm not a licensed school. I am a licensed school.
you're not taking any
can't
students.
I can't accept any students right now because it wouldn't be right. If I accept somebody, that says as soon as you're done with your theory, then I can have to bring you in-house for practical training. And due to COVID restrictions, we're limited how many spaces we have. So I cannot sign anybody up to even start the theory portion ethically because I don't know when I could bring them in for the practical portion.
My apologies, yes, you are licensed. I misspoke. We have no licensed schools taking on students at this time. Again, my apologies.
Plus, it would give a wider array of people to go different places, different towns, and just make it easily more accessible and more accessible to get the education and training. And as we've heard from Lacey and Audrey, that we need electrologists.
Yes, yes, we have
We
to.
can still make sure that they have their theory correct.
Yeah, well, again, in the training program, we will be putting those parameters out in regards to what those requirements look like. And so we will be putting that training program together. So did you have anything else to comment on, Cynthia, before we move on to the other members?
No, I would have to say that if you're going to be having chairside training, the apprenticeship programs, if they're given the theory, then they also have to have a minimum of equipment to train these people.
No. Okay, thank you. Okay, so who was next?
Lacey.
Lacey?
Jamie had her hand up before.
Or was it Jamie?
Oh, I
I
apologize.
can't see who was first.
Jamie?
All right, yes, it seems like people want this program, and as I said, I'm against it. But right now, if somebody goes to California and passes the California state test, am I correct in assuming that they can become licensed electrologists in Oregon?
Jamie, if they have a license in California and they have gone through and they come in through reciprocity, yes.
All right, I just wanted to make sure that was clear. And again, for Oregon people that want to become licensed, they can go to, I think there are 3 schools in California that do the book work online. And then once they get that, if we have our chairside instructors verified, then they can go to any chairside person if this is how we're going to go, or they can go to Cynthia and just take the written work through her and then go to any chairside person. As I said, I'm not in favor of chairside training, but I do know that there are 3 schools in California that are quite good, and I would, because we don't have a school, but I'm hoping somebody will open up a school and be able to take people. But,
I haven't addressed it yet.
we just need electrologists really bad.
Okay, I'm gonna
There
take
just
the mute
aren't
off now.
enough.
Thank you for your input, Jamie, and that's a process that will be worked through during the rules section with Sammy in regards to pathways for the school licensure and the trainee program. I think you're adding a lot of other pieces in regards to piecemeal that I'm not quite sure at this point, Jamie, that's something that the Health Licensing Office would be interested in looking at due to the fact that we need to get pathways for anyone in Oregon without having to go to California to obtain licensure. So, but thank you for that input, and definitely, obviously, we'll discuss it, I'm sure, again. Lacey?
Something I'd like to add about this, that, like currently I said I have someone that's in California going to school that will work for me when she gets back from California. The problem is you have to spend time in California. The hard part is that there's a lot of people I run into all the time that are really, really interested in being electrologists, but they have a life here, they have children here, they have family here, or they're a single mom or a single dad, or there's a lot of different things. And for them, the financial burden of being able to have to go to California and do that is really hard. Also, I was, like I said, I worked with AIE down in California a lot. Ron and I were really good friends. He just recently passed away, the owner of AIE. But when I talked to him about this in the past, as Jamie can tell you, I've had a lot of time with Ron down there, but he was like, well, I'm not willing to share my curriculum, my online curriculum, because that's proprietary. It isn't where I really, get my money and other things by having people in my school. So, the hard part is we have people here that want to be electrologists, but we also have people here who are older and have families and have children and have lives and other things and jobs that support themselves while they want to go to school because they can't do those jobs also, along with going to school or going to California to go to school or going to Portland to go to school. This gives people opportunity to change lives and to be able to do a job. And again, going back to what we're saying, as long as, like the Pearson Board, as long as this is managed, we have testing procedures and a good syllabus, we follow the syllabus that's set forth by the state, it's a step-by-step program. So it can be followed, it can be done, and I think it opens up the opportunity for a lot more people to be able to do or get a position and work within our field. And our field is so short of hands right now that we really need that. And this would open up an opportunity that a lot of people would not be able to have because of where they're at in their life with, like I said, commitments to family or taking care of an elderly parent or just financial needs. I mean, look at where we are right now with COVID. I mean, a lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people don't have work. They can't afford to go and move to Portland and go to school in Portland. They can't afford to go to California, go to school in California. But opening up an apprenticeship program would fill two needs. One, it would give us more people and more opportunities within the electrology field to train good people. And two, it would open up places for people who don't have the financial means to be able to go to school. Most schools don't qualify for a federal or student aid. They're not, because they're not actually accredited to be able to offer financial aid. So a lot of that's off the table. So most of the time at schools, especially in California, those are all out-of-pocket pay. The person I have down there, I'm paid for some of her tuition, and she's going to do a slight servitude and indenturement with me when she gets back from that. But that's the thing that I make because I need extra hands in my background. So, because she herself can afford it. But I think, like I said, this is an opportunity for us as, a field to be able to offer our training and services and be able to offer more, especially at a time when we really need this. There's, like Jamie was saying earlier, there's a big boom, especially in the transgender needs and other ends of this field that haven't been looked at in the past that are just growing immensely. So I think it's a great opportunity, but, the state does seem to have a very good handle on managing it, manage the quality of the people coming out of the other programs. So I think as long as it's followed, like I said, this is a step-by-step, stepping stone approach, and you walk someone through it as an instructor, you have those things, and like you guys said, there are ways to go back and retrain the trainer to be able to make sure that the areas that those trainers are falling short in are areas that can be picked up on and, kind of fix that person. Now, we didn't say the student passed, they failed that portion where they failed the test, so you guys go back and look at it. So it's not like I just failed somebody and sent them out on the street to go practice electrology, because they didn't pass the test, and therefore the areas they failed are looked at, and then you're coming to the trainer to go, okay, well, we need to figure out where you're wrong in these areas or what we can do to fix that. So, I mean, it is a situation where there is ways to maintain the integrity of the training without degradation of training. So if we have a good program, we write a good program, and we have a good syllabus to follow, and the person follows that syllabus, which is backed up by testing and other means, that this can be a really good way to train a person.
Thank you for that your input on that. Okay, so I think we're ready to move on, unless anybody has anything else to say. Oops. I'm sorry, did you have something else to say, Lacey? Okay, so I think we're ready to move on unless anybody is going to raise their hand and has any other comments on
The only
this.
thing I had was that when we do fiscal impact statements, and if the recommendation was to use California schools, it would basically be taking money from small business in Oregon and potentially costing the public.
Cynthia, you're muted.
Oh, good. Never mind.
I apologize. Okay. So would you like me to?
So basically, when you file administrative rules and when you propose them, you have to do a fiscal impact statement. And if we were recommending that Oregonians go to California to take theory courses, which could be taken in Oregon, we would be taking money out from small business, potentially charging customers more because you've got to go to California to take this theoretical training. And then kind of explain all the whys and why nots, and you'd probably get a lot of pushback on public comment on that kind of stuff. So those are all things you have to consider when you're making those type of recommendations. So that was it.
Thanks, Sam. So one of the things that are on the next on the agenda is the alternative examinations. So we do have the one licensed career school, and even though they are not taking on new students, they are willing to do practical examinations for individuals that do need that, for individuals coming from other states that may need to do that. But with the training pathway, moving forward with that rule, we will also be looking at alternative examinations, such as for practical examinations, such as the NIC and maybe the IBEC. If they offer that, I'd have to look into that, and any other alternate examinations that may qualify. And so I also wanted to put that out there with the new training pathway that will be added to the rule. I think that's it. Did anybody have any comments on that? Hang on just a second.
Jamie, oh, I don't. Jamie and Cynthia again.
Okay, Jamie? Did you want to comment on that?
No, I just forgot to take off my little hand.
Okay, perfect. Cynthia, did you have any comments on that?
So she took her hand down.
As far as testing, I really feel that if they're coming from a state that is licensed, that does testing, we should just accept it, hands down. I mean, if they're coming from an unlicensed state, then, you know, we have to look at their training, what they had, what they can verify. And as far as testing, we can have our own test here, like we used to. There's been some problems with the other NIC tests, but even if you wanted to implement the NIC test, as far as I'm concerned, they're all acceptable. I know that's kind of all over the place.
Well, okay.
But I did want to comment on your physical impact. And as far as impact on my school has been great, because for quite a long time now, people have been going to California because they can do the online portion and get it done in just a couple of months and then come back here and get their license. So I don't know what the cry is about now, all of a sudden, that, you know, all these people aren't going to run to California, because they still are. I just finally got my ability to have back my theory portion online, but that didn't help me over all the years. So.
Okay. All right.
I think what we're really just trying to do is just push towards having no more schools, and it's very evident that that's the way it's wanting to go.
We have both options.
So chairside training, I don't care what anybody says, through the apprenticeship programs is going to be all over the place. It's not going to be a good thing for our profession, and it's going to bring down the word electrologist because it already has been a slippery slope going downhill.
So just so I want to be clear on that, Cynthia, the health licensing office was not looking at adding the training program and having supervisors, but with only one school in Oregon, and then your licensed career school not accepting any new students, and we have to create other pathways. So it was not our intent originally to actually do this training program by any means, because we did have your licensed career school taking on new students. But when you suspended that, Oregon has to look at other options and in order to allow Oregon licensees to come in. So it literally created the health licensing office to look at these alternatives, and this is how we have decided that we have to move forward. But again, not our intent, but we were left with no option. So, and then other schools, if there's other individuals or that want to create, licensed career school and take on electrology and students, maybe the rules could be looked at in the future if there are more options for individuals in Oregon to be able to gain, that education at a licensed career school. Maybe that's something that we can bring back up to the committee and to the board. So
We're not taking it.
We're not taking away career schools.
no, I know we're not taking
That's
away
what you
career
just
schools.
said.
No, I apologize. No, we're just looking at other options. We're not taking those. So if other individuals still want to have licensed career schools, I guess my point is that maybe in the future, if more licensed career schools are created, then maybe that we could look at maybe removing the training portion at that point. But
We don't hear
because
you anymore.
can everybody else hear me, or just you, Cynthia? Or?
No, we cannot hear you, Cynthia.
Well, I apologize. The microphone's on and I'm talking into the
Will you make your screen bigger?
because then the document.
Okay, you're okay now.
Okay. Well, did Cynthia? Did you get any of my conversation in regards to the options out there for individuals that we have to create?
Not really. I understand due to COVID and how it's restricted me as a school, it is making it so that you guys can do chair-side services for everyone now, which is going to put me out of business. So pretty much if that goes up, I don't know that I'll even look at teaching anymore.
Okay. So what I had said is, because there is only one licensed career school in Oregon who has suspended taking on students, the health licensing office has to look at other options for individuals to come into the state of Oregon and gain licensure as an electrologist. Again, it was not our intent to move away from the school, but because the one school in Oregon is not taking on students, it left the office with no other option than to move forward with additional options. So can
this option be put in a temporary basis?
So again, what I had said is when and if other schools get licensed and start accepting students, and there's multiple options for individuals to come in through Oregon, the board can then look at the option of removing the trainee program. But at this point, we have to have multiple options available for individuals to come in to gain licensure in Oregon.
Multiple? Why do you have to have multiple? It was never multiple before.
I don't know if it's going to be multiple, but we have to, I guess, have some options for students, because what has happened, and the reason why we have to move forward with this training program is because there is only one licensed career school in Oregon, and you have quit taking on students, and it has left Oregon in a bind. So I think it's something that we definitely need to look at, and that
Yes, I keep hearing you say that, but my question was, can you not just make this a temporary thing, that when the COVID restrictions are removed and the school can take on students again, that then it would close down the apprenticeship programs?
That is a possibility, yes, Cynthia.
But not a promise.
All right, Lacey, you had a question or a comment?
Let's comment. So, I mean, what I get from this experience is that it's not shutting Cynthia's school down even after COVID is over. What it's doing is it's just adding more options for more people to be able to gain the licensure in the state, which is still a good thing, because like I said before, a lot of people can't go to Portland to go to Cynthia's school. A lot of people need more options to be able to go and receive education and training. So it does open a lot of other avenues to be able to get people into the field that we desperately need at this time. So, I mean, it's kind of, I mean, in essence, I mean, I actually guess it'd be nice to have the monopoly on the fact that your school only gets people in the state, but it's also very nice to have the ability to spread that around to be able to offer people more opportunities within the state to get training other places than just only one place in the state without having to go out of state. And I really feel like that's kind of a monopolization by saying, well, if someone can come back and get, and start visiting students again, that we're going to shut a training program that is produce qualified candidates. Because, again, like I said, this is something we need to look at that offers and affords opportunity to people who can't get it elsewhere, who make great electrologists. They're great additions to our work field. And, I mean, to say that you can only go to one place in the state to get training, even if the school does open back up, is not okay. I mean, we need to have available options for other people to seek training, and that's really...
But that's called business. That's called business. It's not my fault that somebody else closed their school down.
Cynthia, I think Jamie was next. Jamie, did you have a comment? No? Sheila, did you have a comment?
I was wondering, Cynthia mentioned earlier the distance problem with the school, and with so many things happening with the state. The restaurants going back and forth. The more people are able to gather now in certain situations. Does it look like possibly whatever is holding things back for Cynthia to have more people in the school could be opening up soon? Have you gotten any indication? What would it take for Cynthia to be able to open the school?
We have to go off the governor's directives, and whatever that is at the given moment is what we have to do. So unfortunately, at this time, it is affecting Cynthia. So again, we're making additional options for individuals in Oregon. Okay, did anybody else have another comment before we wrap this up? No? Okay. Perfect. I am done with my section. Did you have anything else that? No, not today. Oh, okay.
You can do curriculum.
Okay.
Then I'll do the rules.
So once we determine what this curriculum is going to look like, we can move forward on the rules. So I will be in contact with all of you, like I said previously, to discuss the curriculum and the options, and then we will also be in contact for additional meeting dates, and then we'll go from there. Thank you all for your participation. I really appreciate it, and your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys take care, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you very